Hello, I hope you're doing well. Welcome back to more CSGO news. I hope you guys all enjoyed. This past weekend was absolutely insane. I think we can all agree now with our 10 minor teams finalized for this upcoming major and just over 2 weeks away. I am so excited to see these teams compete. Brand new stickers, a lot of brand new teams and brand new players at the major stage. I think we can all agree though, over the past 10 days, qualifying these 10 teams have led to a tremendous amount of upsets. Of course, out of the European minor, we'll talk about it minor by minor as well, as all of our major teams have now been finalized. Of course, on top of that, this past weekend, the ELEAGUE Invitational brought us a lot of answers to questions out there about those 4 teams. Cloud9, Big, Complexity, alongside FaZe Clan, each with new rosters, and of course we'll try and answer those questions today, or talk about them at least, but some hectic things going on in CSGO, and I cannot wait to break it down. These next 2 weeks, these next 4 weeks, of course across the entire major as well, are going to be insane. So thank you all for, of course, watching CSGO News, and let's get into our first story out there. Let's talk about, though, each individual minor, piece by piece, the upsets we saw throughout qualifying these 10 teams. I think we can all agree the overall number one tremendous upset was the number 1 European minor team, that being Mousesports, of course, also a top 5 team in the world, falling short to Valiance. Valiance as well, they take out Mousesports, they fall just short to Vitality, the team who takes down the number 1 European minor team, then fails to qualify themselves. Of course, Vitality go through, ENCE go through. Those are easily probably your number 1 upset right there, maybe your number 2 upset with Valiance, who looks so strong, but I think definitely taking the cake as a number 3 spot, maybe even the number 1 spot. You guys can, of course, leave your feedback down below. That being North on our very last day of the minor play-in, it comes down to a best of 3 versus ViCi Gaming out of course, the Asian minor. Definitely the strong favorite here team was North. They were favored, of course, across the entire European minor, as well as the play-in stage as well. They were one of the favorites in the European minor, but when it comes to the play-in stage across these 4 teams, there is no doubt in anyone's mind that North was by far and away a favorite to take one of those 2 spots. Yes, it could be debated, right? Win strike goes through on 2 best of 1 wins. So yes, we could argue the format's rough, but yes, after 10 days as well, they want to get the minor over with. This is a venue. Remember that it's a LAN event, guys. They can only keep this venue for so long. And if you're going down to this part of the minor play-in from any other region, it makes sense to do a best of 1 format. Europe maybe not as much because North is they're such a hard-hitting team, a very well qualified team, a team who probably deserve to qualify. So it's rough to see a spot taken by 2 best of 1 victories. You can't blame Win Strike here though. They did what they had to do. But of course, alongside that, heavy favorites against ViCi Gaming, who showed some decent surprise here, of course, with their minor so far. Renegades and Greyhound was no surprise to go through. I think ViCi was one of my picks actually to make the major, but did I have full faith in them? Probably not. And of course, when it came down to this best of 3, I think everyone in their right minds thought North was a heavy favorite, especially when their first map pick was Dust 2, a map that ViCi Gaming, as this lineup, had not played a single time before this minor play-in. Not a single time. Actually, they played it once. Sorry, my bad, guys. They played it once in the minor against Greyhound. For the first time as a team, they played it there. They played Greyhound pretty close on that map, but they take it away from North, and that was a snowball throughout the series. Of course, map 2 then goes to Inferno. Double overtime. ViCi Gaming claims their spot in the major, and they take it away from North. And I think the biggest takeaway I have from this, guys, and you, of course, probably watch the series as well, I feel very bad for the entire North roster. I think changes are coming. I feel the most bad, as for many of you probably feel the most bad for as well, one person being Valde, who carried this team through and throughout the actual minor itself, was not enough against Team Vitality, and of course Kirby as well. Those 2 players are some of the most prestigious players we have seen in quite some time, and they certainly deserve the major. They could not carry the lacking firepower and just overall power of the rest of the squad, and those are probably my top 3 upsets just out of the European minor alone, as well as the minor play-in. My 3 biggest upsets so far were 3 European teams. Mousesports doesn't qualify, Valiance, the team who takes down Mousesports, does not qualify, and North losing to ViCi. Those are incredible upsets all out of the European minor, and the rest of the minors, they went pretty much to plan. Renegades and Greyhound go out through the Asian minor. No surprise there. They were by far and away your favorite teams. Of course, with the CIS, the 3 most experienced teams qualify. Win Strike through the play-in. We, of course, also have Team Spirit and a Vanguard. A Vanguard was your favorite team out of there. Went according to plan. The most experienced rosters qualified there, as well as in the Asian minor. And then when it comes to America, yes, it was nitty gritty. We knew NRG was by far and away the furthest gapping favorite. They lived up the hype, guys. They were, of all the minors, I think, the most dominant team and the most, of course, most projected team to actually go through. They lived up to that, though. NRG dominating all the teams they had to play. And Furia, the best team we saw throughout the minor qualifiers, and early on in the minor as well, they also managed to qualify. Yes, there were people out there who maybe picked United. They looked pretty subpar. Also envious with Kerrigan. People believed they had a chance. I too believe they had a chance. I did not pick them to go through, but every other minor besides the European minor went exactly, you could say almost exactly to a T, to the plan that many people had for them. And it goes to show you guys, yes, we all knew the European powers were there. I do think for the future majors, we must consider at least one additional spot somehow for the European side, because when I just reeled off those upsets, the only ones I could really think about, the major upsets, all came from Europe. Yes, you could argue that North kind of threw away that chance, and so it's not too big of an upset from the European minor. They had a chance in the minor play-in. Either way, though, I think European teams do deserve an additional slot. We saw so many upsets, though, and it will be ViCi Gaming, I think, the biggest surprise team there. I do think, though, a lot of questions answered going forward. A lot of these teams we saw play into actually the minor, I'm not going to be picking throughout the major, but I cannot wait for those pickups some other time. Yes, guys, our major teams have been finalized. Leave a comment down below your biggest upset we saw this past week. Some crazy things. And also this past weekend, we had a lot of questions answered when it comes to the ELEAGUE Invitational between 4 teams who had also had 4 roster changes, that being Big, FaZe, Cloud9, Complexity. I did make predictions for this event. It was pretty crazy to see the results in itself, and I think it did answer, like I said before, a lot of questions for this major in just 2 weeks' time. But along with that, 2 assumptions I did make right. My overall prediction was to actually have Big Clan win the event. Yes, I was incorrect about that, but again, a lot of things did actually happen that kind of lived up to the word. Now, first of which, I did say Cloud9 is a team consistently over these past 2 months who has proven, even with their roster swap so far, not even a finite roster yet between Golden and, of course, Zelsis, a team who can still consistently take maps off of any team or any roster in the world currently, and they lived up to that hype very, very much so, guys. Throughout day 1 and day 2, they make the finals. They first take down FaZe, they then take down Big, and I would say relatively easily, based off, of course, the leads they built up on their CT side. Yes, they almost threw the series against FaZe, but either way, it looks close on paper. What we saw, though, throughout the first half at least, was not close whatsoever. And that another point I'll bring up in a bit here, but Cloud9 make the finals, I would say, relatively easily. It's, of course, FaZe on the lower bracket finals, taking off Big as well. In that series, though, I would say a lot of these teams, especially those top 3, we'll throw Complexity out there. I would say Complexity also living up to an assumption I made. They were the most underwhelming team here by far. This roster, I think, compared to these other rosters who have star potential, they have star players who have shown up this tournament at least. And again, I was worried about this with the departure of especially Android alongside Ye, but Android most importantly, this roster has taken a heavy hit, and a roster I am not very hyped up on when it comes major time. Those are the 2 assumptions I did make that actually rang true. Cloud9 can take a map off just about anyone, and Complexity is going to be a very underwhelming roster, I do believe, at least for the major. But besides that, of course, in that FaZe versus Big best of 3, it was actually Xanterres early on showing up quite well. You thought he fit in with the team very, very well. A bit of a crack, though, against FaZe in that series. I think the lack of Xanterres actually cost them that series in itself. A series of back and forth, and definitely map 1 and 2 very close. Map 3 was considerably close as well. I think either team could have actually taken that series. I still think, though, the winner of that series, whether it's FaZe or Big, based off learning curve, would have taken down Cloud9 in the finals. Based off what we've seen throughout all these teams, though, a very, very severe struggle on the T side for these brand new rosters. Complexity, maybe not so much, but Cloud9, FaZe, and Big certainly struggled on their T sides, besides maybe on a map like Overpass, and that makes sense. With brand new rosters, of course, that makes sense. But again, I think some questions were answered throughout this tournament, but a lot of questions were also left unanswered about which players can actually show up for these teams currently. But it was FaZe Clan taking down Cloud9. They learned a little bit in that first best of 3. I would still say a relatively close series, and if a Guardian does not go off on train like he did, absolutely insane. I believe final scoreline was actually 34-9. It was pretty crazy to see. Like I said before, what players can show up? Guardian certainly did. FaZe Clan take their first title of 2019, but like I said previously, guys, there's many things that I still have unanswered about Cloud9, a team who, a guy like Rush, right, can show up one map and just go absolutely nuts and then be pretty much non-existent the next map. Automatic is certainly their most stable player, the most consistent player I've seen on Cloud9's roster. Of course, that is why he did so well throughout 2018 in terms of overall player rankings. But a guy like Zealous as well, I would certainly certainly say a pretty poor weekend from Rush as well as Zelsis, definitely the difference makers for these series so far. But guys like Kiyoshima, guys like Flusha can go off and actually lead many maps out there. It's nice to see a team like that certainly have a lot of potential in those players, and we definitely saw throughout the entire event a FaZe clan be very flustered on their T side. There were so many games, especially against Cloud9, where they racked up 10 plus round points on their CT side, that being Cloud9, unfortunately enough, and then it would be a comeback for FaZe on their CT side. It's crazy to see a team like that be able to come back so hard on those sides, but the same goes for Cloud9. They can rack up so much on their CT side. So once these rosters do develop and shot calls are actually executed to perfection, I'm excited to see what these rosters can do, and I'm very excited to see what FaZe Clan can do once Nico locks down that IGL role. We certainly saw for the first time in a long time a overall lack of firepower from Nico across just about every single map. So yeah, I probably just said way too much. I would say my overall keys I've taken away from this weekend: once Big can figure out Xantares on a consistent basis, that man is still there for firepower. Yes, he did not show up very well in that last series. That does not answer the questions though of where this team will be for the major. I really do think all of these teams will steadily improve, and have certainly improved from their former rosters. Cloud9, the keys to success there: Zelsis and Rush. Can Rush be activated for a consistent amount of time? Can he not be that anomaly, you know, every now and again? Can he be a consistent player like Automatic? He certainly has the potential there. Everyone knows that, to be a top 20 player in the world. And very lastly for FaZe Clan, once Nico does not get frustrated, we saw several times throughout timeouts, this guy was definitely tilted in my opinion, and once he can actually lock down that IGL role and return back to a semi-form of his former firepower self, I think all three of these rosters are going to be looking very strong. Consistent rosters for the major, I don't know. We're going to have to actually see what we see then. They have 2 weeks to actually boot camp, guys. I'm excited to see where these rosters do go. But as always, my name is Jake. I hope you guys all enjoy. I'll be back here tomorrow with more CSGO news, right? This is kind of like a tournament breakdown to see where we're at currently with all these teams right now in the world. I still think Astralis is up there clapping away alongside Na'Vi. With all these teams right below them making roster changes, it seems the most consistent teams out there are probably those two, but especially by far and away Astralis. Of course, you guys know why. But as always, I hope you guys all enjoy. I will see you, of course, back here tomorrow. And until then, see you then.